webinar is entitled Hackers, Breaches, and Fraud, How Businesses and Consumers Can Safely Manage Credit Card Transactions. Advance the slide. Our presenter is RIT alumnus Pete Beckary. Pete was actually raised not too far from Rochester in western New York State, and after serving in the U.S. Air Force, he returned to the Rochester area, graduating from the Saunders College of Business here at RIT in 1990. He has worked extensively in the computer and accounting fields, spending the past 11 plus years, in the electronic payments world, 8 years in the corporate environment, and the past 3 self-employed as an agent for MPX. From 2006 to 2008, Pete worked part-time for DHS/TSA as an airport screener. That's interesting. Pete has recently worked helping retail point-of-sale systems upgrade to accept EMV or chip cards and NFC payments, which I guess would be akin to Apple Pay and Samsung Pay. Clearly, I need to pay attention to this webinar because these are all new to me. His focus has been on the small to medium-sized mom-and-pop businesses that he works with. While he maintains a credit card processing portfolio of 130-plus businesses, Pete is also involved with a startup business here in Rochester that is launching a connected car app in the spring of 2018. Pete, we are glad to have you actually with us here in Rochester. Take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and I do not want to be the only one talking here. I would appreciate questions, comments, feedback from everybody. This is a lot of the things we're covering here. There are a couple things in the news this morning that I even tossed in the presentation, thanks to Chris here. So, credit cards. Discussion of credit cards and their concerns. We're going to hit the business and the consumer side. We want to make sense. Charges and fees. We're going to do some definitions so we can define the players in this industry. We have a lot of breach discussion and security things to talk about from both the business and the consumer side. All right. I'm going to read through these definitions here. Key players, the cardholder, that's you and me as a consumer. So when we go to Joe's Pizza, he's our merchant. Capital One would be our issuer when we do a transaction. There's some behind-the-scenes things with the banks and other organizations that you never really see. They get involved with the chargebacks and disputes that we will talk about a little later. I worked in the corporate world for First Data. You'll see them on the list here in a minute. They are one of the biggest credit card processors, and like anything else in the corporate world, there's a game of Pac-Man going on, and a lot of these peer organizations, we'll call them, are gobbling each other up, so there's fewer and larger organizations doing this. Wells Fargo is a sponsoring bank behind the scenes that pretty much fronts the money. When we do a transaction as a consumer at Joe's Pizza, the card transaction runs through a lot of these players and gets an authorization. Joe's Pizza is not going to get his money until he does a settlement, batch, close, synonymous 3 words there, on his little credit card machine or his point of sale, and then the money's going to get dumped into his bank account. Wells Fargo gets involved with that on the back end. Card associations, Visa, Master, Discover, Amex. I actually spell those out a little bit more on one of these slides. Here we go. WEX, which is Wright Express and Voyager. Those are 2 oddballs. If anybody out there is involved with fleets or auto fleets, truck fleets, the U.S. Postal Service as a fleet uses, these are cards that are used for auto service and fuel. So if you're a business and you're an I should say specifically an auto service business, it might behoove you to accept these cards. Discover and American Express used to be handled differently. When I started in this industry in 2006, Joe's Pizza Shop, I'll keep referring to him, he may have had 3 credit card statements coming in at the end of every month. One from his main Visa and Master, actually from his processor, and then he would get a separate statement from Discover, a separate one from American Express. They had their own rate structures. He would also potentially get 3 deposits into his bank account the next day, or 2 days, or whatever his funding was. Actually, American Express held on to it for a while. That's all merged together. So if you think of the little sticker on the window or the door when you're walking into Joe's Pizza Shop, I like to set my customers up so they take every card and they make it easy for people to spend money there. This is just a snapshot of American Express. So they came on board and leveled off with everybody else. In the industry, this is an hour talk itself. There is a wholesale grid. This is just American Express, and you can see it's kind of fuzzy there, but you can see based on your industry, whether you're retail, kind of skip over the prepaid. Moto could be your old, before e-commerce, you're taking orders over the phone. Healthcare, blah, blah, blah. You'll see all the different rates. Healthcare is actually favored very well. It's based on risk. It's based on how the card is run. Like I say, the whole transaction cost structure is a multi-hour conversation in itself. Just wanted to give you a snapshot there. Okay, first polling question. How much extra does a consumer spend using plastic? Think of this in retail, restaurants, shopping for shoes, whatever. So now's your chance to answer that. We'll come back to that with the answers. I've got multiple questions here. What percentage of retails is done with debit cards? There's a couple ways to run the debit cards. One is running it like a credit card, and the other is running it with a PIN. Those go into different paths of how the process is done, how the transaction is done, the rate structure, all that good stuff. Okay, behind the scenes. We mentioned the associations, the consumer, Joe's Pizza, those guys. I did mention First Data. The independent group I'm with now, we use First Data to do the processing. For the consumer, not actually for the consumer, for the merchant, for Joe's Pizza, the industry can be very confusing because there's many ways to get that service. It's become a bit of a commodity. You can go to Costco, you can go to Sam's Club, you can be a part of a pizza shop buyers association, you can go to your local bank, you can get an independent guy like me to set it up. Lots of ways to do it. In my opinion, it really comes down to a face-to-face local person that you can call and reach, maybe not at 3 in the morning, but be able to reach and get these kind of questions answered and get some service and value out of it. I'm listing here some of the main processors, and this may be old news tomorrow because there are some mergers going on week to week, day to day. Interchange, think of the chart I just showed you with American Express. That's just American Express. There's 11 or 12 pages the last I checked, and it's updated in October and April of every year. The Interchange is the wholesale grid we talked about that any processor has to pay as part of the fee structure that Joe's Pizza gets charged. The main thing that Joe's Pizza wants to know, and that's the last point on this slide here, is what is your effective rate? What are you paying overall month to month as a percentage of your sales? And do you understand the best way to run the transaction? That's where your local rep, your face-to-face person can help you out. How the charges are calculated depend on, like we saw in the American Express grid, what industry are you in? Are you retail? Are you healthcare? Are you e-commerce? And so on. The type of card, Visa, Master, Visa, Master, Discover, American Express. For the most part, they've come to the same system. They have different levels of rewards. Those are the charges, whether it's a business or a consumer card, whether it's debit or credit, and like I said, there's several ways to run that. Whether it's retail, there's a lot of variations here. We could talk hours just on this subject as well. There are rate structure variations. So for the business owner, you might have heard the phrase 3-tier. That is the most common. That takes that whole 12 pages of interchange wholesale stuff and it dumps it into 3 buckets. Generically, those buckets are swiped, as in retail, when you come into Joe's Pizza shop and pay for your pizza. Another level is when you call up on the phone and he takes your card over the phone and he delivers it, or you have your kid pick it up. So the card's not present. That's another term in the industry. Or the third level is the business card. So a higher rate is charged. The rates go up with those 3 levels. I've seen plenty of folks in my 11-plus years not even open their credit card statement. It's hieroglyphic. They don't understand it. They look at their bank statement, see what their charges were, they plug that number into QuickBooks to reconcile things, and they move on. They don't really analyze it. Side note here is gift cards, especially this time of year. After this, we're going to come back to our polling questions. The gift cards are, last I heard, the number 2 item sold at Christmas. 2 main points here. Number 2 item, and the last number I heard was 1 in 4 gift cards never make it back to the store. So if you sell 4 gift cards for 25 bucks a piece, you will see 3 of those returned and redeemed. The other one is revenue up front, you never see it returned. So for the business owner, a gift card is a really good program to have to build your revenue. Expiration of gift cards goes down, is my understanding, to state accounting laws. So it may be a liability to your business. On the accounting side, it may or may not have an expiration depending on your state law. Those are the kind of questions I get. Can we look at the polling results here? Mm-hmm. First polling question, paper or plastic? And the last number I had, and for us guys that are in sales out here, this is what they tell us. There's a ticket lift of 31%. Let's see what our answers look like. Everybody's, okay, 24. 31% ticket lift. In other words, if you're going to the shoe store, ladies, or I guess for guys, the Cabela's, and you're using plastic versus pulling cash out of your wallet, which hurts when you spend it, you're spending 31% more. So going back to the sticker on the door, accepting all card types, yes, American Express used to be higher, especially in restaurants. I see restaurants in a college town. I've seen a restaurant in a college town who was adamant about not accepting American Express. And I'm kind of beating on the American Express thing here, but and I have some more figures to touch on. The average businessman who has a corporate credit card, it's usually an American Express card, he's going to spend more. His average transaction's higher, he's going to spend more. So the fees that you're giving up to take American Express, which historically was higher, but it's leveled off with the others, you're going to make it up in increased revenue. So take them all. Put the sticker on the door, take them all, make it easy for people to spend in your business. So what's our results here? Can we see a snapshot of percentage? I'll come back to that. But anyway, the answer to that, paper or plastic, 31%. Debit or credit, the last figure I had a few years ago, and I say that with a little disclaimer, things change, things increase. If somebody else knows another number, chat it to us. But the last number I had was 52% is of retail sales done with plastic debit cards is what they use. So, next slide. All right, the breach stuff. Here we go. If you have further questions on the business side, the processing, the fees, and things like that, you'll have an email go out with the follow-up. My email, my phone number, all that stuff. Let me know. It's like I say, it's a multiple hour, well, it can be a lengthy discussion and it's specific to your business. If you have some general questions on it, shoot it to one of our moderators, I'll answer it. All right, polling question. Have you been affected by a breach? And a hint to that is out of the blue, getting a credit card replaced, or debit, I should say debit card. It seems to happen more there. That your card issuer, like Capital One, replaced for no reason. Your expiration date was not up. Well, another reason you might have had it replaced is when they pushed the chip cards out a couple of years ago. But if it was out of the blue, not related to the chip, not related to an expiration date, good chance you were involved in a breach. Target, Kohl's. Almost gave away one of our next questions. Here's what happens with these breaches. And I have some insight a little bit from some of the folks who take care of these accounts at the national level at First Data. I know one of the folks out of Ohio who does these. And these are the kind of things when we went to our annual and national sales meeting at First Data, they would talk about these kind of things. So Joe's Pizza Shop, I'll use a simple example there, and think also of Target, Kohl's, whatever. Go to Joe's Pizza Shop. He has a cash register and a credit card machine. When he swipes your credit card, he's going to get an approval on that. No money's going to move. It's going to be a thumbs up or thumbs down. The card transaction is approved or it's declined. At the end of the day, he has to run a function where he batches the 3 words I use: batch it, settle it, close it, whatever. He has to close off that batch and send the information out through the system so the money winds up in his bank account. If he leaves the batch open, he's not going to get his money. What we understand has happened at Target was all that information on their point-of-sale system. You got your little red pin pad where you swipe your card. They have their cash register. Multiply that by all their lanes and all their stores. They would have a central server where all that batch information is flowing through. Your card number, all the stuff that gets swiped off, now dipped. We'll talk about the security of the chip here soon. All that stuff on the magnetic stripe was being gathered in their system and somebody hacked it. So what they've come up with as a remedy is tokenization and encryption. Encryption, you'll hear end-to-end. We have end-to-end encryption. In other words, when the card is swiped, that information is garbled at that end before it's sent across the line, usually the internet, to the credit card processor. Tokenization is in the system when that encrypted information goes to the processor and something is kicked back to we'll use Target as the example, back to Target's system. It's tokenized. In other words, a bogus number is kicked back to the batch system of Target that matches up with a real card number. So if somebody were to hack through all the encryption of the batch, it's useless information. So that gives you a rough idea. For those that are IT folks, I've barely scratched on the surface of what actually goes on. But
hey, I'm sorry, Pete, could I ask a question?
Please.
The question's from Joe. And it's related to a mom and pop question, perhaps, or I guess it could be a larger organization. But Louis and Joe both asked a similar question. How do we protect from fraud in a restaurant when the server takes your credit card someplace else to run through the credit card system?
Let's jump into the chip card stuff. I'll advance my slide.
I'm sorry. Do you want to hold on that?
No, actually it's a good time to do that. Keeps me on track too. Good question, guys. Don't let your card go away. The goofy thing is October 1st, 2015, 2 years ago, we had a deadline of everybody, as in the merchant being PCI, that's another thing. That's a compliance review. Sorry, EMV, of being ready for EMV. Let me jump ahead. Okay. The polling question about the popular restaurant, go for it. Next polling question, EMV. I had some fun with that. It stands for EuroPay, MasterCard, Visa. There actually were some politics going on. Discover and American Express are in the loop. Why they're not listed here, whatever. EMV is the chip card. So what that deadline of October 1st, 2015 dictated was that merchants would be ready by that point to accept the chip cards and to have the equipment to accept the chip cards. So places like Red Robin, I'm sure maybe Applebee's, they're putting devices at the table to prevent the wait staff from taking your card to the back. Because yes, there's been, just like you get the skimmers in the ATMs, they'll take your card back, they'll swipe it through their machine, they'll swipe it through their little thing and capture and steal all your data. Chip card takes the magnetic stripe, which is not horribly secure, and encrypts and does some of this technology stuff. Some of you IT guys know it better than I do, but it secures your information a lot more. So to answer your question, you said Joe and Dave?
Yes, Joe and Dave.
Joe and Louis, sorry, Joe and Louis. The restaurant should be compliant and should have the equipment where they do not let the card leave the table, period. There's an interesting loophole, and that is there was a liability shift. I say this slow. There was a liability shift where the liability shifted to the merchant unless they're compliant. So translating that to English, if I go, and the loophole is this, and there's billions of dollars worth of fraud going on. So if I go to Joe's Pizza, he's not ready for the chip card. He's swiping the card. He's not dipping it into the terminal or the pin pad that takes the chip. And you guys know, you go out there, it's a 50-50 shot. We see these terminals, pin pads, whatever you want to call them, that, hey, they say, yes, we're ready for the chip, or no, we're not ready for the chip. If they're not ready for the chip and you do a transaction with a chip card, which you're swiping, you can go and dispute that transaction and win. That's the fraud loophole. So for the business owner, you know, locks are only for honest people, as they say. So for the business owner, get yourself compliant. Get yourself upgraded with the equipment you have on the system. The example I use, I'm up here in Rochester now, my hometown in Lancaster, BJ's Wholesale Club and Giant Food Stores. Well, BJ's are everywhere. BJ's are ready to go. They are compliant. We'll talk about the Apple Pay stuff too. They're ready for that. BJ's is ready for the EMV chip card. Down the road, Giant Food Stores is I believe it's a Pennsylvania-based grocery store. They have the same looking pin pad that I swipe my card through. They're not ready. The systems are pretty elaborate, and there's a lot of certification and all that kind of stuff going on between the associations, the Visa, Master, Discover, American Express. The pin pad itself has to be compliant and up to date. And any of the software between that pin pad and that system, there's a lot of variations in there. Not everybody's ready. I actually use this BJ's versus in the slide. Liability shift, we talked about. Pay at the pump and ATMs. There's a different timeline for those, but within the next year or so, if they don't keep pushing these deadlines off, it's going to be all chip card. And eventually you will see the chip card that we have now that has the chip and the mag stripe going to be replaced just with a chip. And at the point of sale, we're going to see chip and signature. In other words, you're running the chip, you're dipping it, you're not swiping it. That's going to be replaced with a chip and pin. Everything, debit, not just you're thinking, well, we do that with our debit cards. Everything, chip and pin like they do in Europe. For those that have traveled to Europe anytime in the last few years, that's what they have. Eventually, all transactions will be PIN. All right, I'm going to go to the next.
Pete, what's the accountability if a small local mom and pop isn't getting compliant?
There really isn't. They're just putting themselves at risk for that fraud, okay. Which, you know, the local mom and pop, they're going to the dry cleaners or the pizza place, or chances of I'm a local person, I'm not going to pull the fraud on them. But in the big box places, yes, absolutely. That's where I think it's happening more and more. Did we miss any polling questions? Yeah, affected by a breach. What did we get on that? I'm just curious. That was a yay or nay. I have a college-age daughter who I give in my name, her name, but it's my account, Target. So, and I think she used another one of my cards there too. So the Target thing affected me is my point. I did have to make some phone calls, so I'm yes on that one. What did you have? Yes, 38%. Okay. No, 5%. Interesting. Interesting. So yes, I think most of us have in one way or another. I had to make phone calls. I had to verify. I had to check on some things. I keep moving here because of our timing. Questions too. Like I said in the beginning, I don't want to do all the talking. Do we have any other questions on this? Because we're probably going to shift a little bit here.
Well, somebody did ask as a follow-up to the waitress or server taking the credit card, they could still take it and write down the number, right? So.
True. But when we get to the chip and pin, that card number is going to be useless unless they have.
All right. So someone with your same first name, Peter, wants to know what's causing the delay for this chip and pin.
The expense of the merchants, the certification. I've worked with a local to Lancaster County, a company that has a point-of-sale system in retail stores. Been working with them for 2 years to get their system up and running. We tested out, so the little customer-facing device, we call it in the industry, the little pin pad you swipe your card to or dip your card. We tested several of those. We tested a piece of middleware that talks between that and their system. A lot of variations until the learning curve came down and we figured it out.
How does the chip and pin how does that impact your online purchase? Or how does it work?
That's one of the things I'm going to touch on.
You're going to talk about that?
Actually, okay. I'll just answer it right now. It is one of the things. There's things coming. I'm not an expert on that, and there's chatter of that. I don't know of anything specific, but there's chatter. There is your CVV code and those kind of things. I think we're seeing more and more just tightening up. I've had merchants who have turned on some of the features of their shopping cart to tighten down things that may not be required, but it's common sense once they have a bad transaction. Like I say, locks are only for honest people. And sadly, I have too many stories, especially being in Lancaster County with our wonderful, hardworking Amish, and you're going to cock your head like a dog hearing a new sound when I say, yes, they have all the technology. That flavor of Amish in Lancaster in their homes, they don't have cell phones, and well, they're not supposed to. But in their businesses, they're doing all the technology we're doing. And I've had, because they were preyed on, I have had a merchant who was to the tune of $50,000, some fraud hit him. So if we have time later, I can chat a little bit more about that. Next slide here, industry email. I just picked up on this the other day. This is just talking about the speed. I'm not going to read this. This is talking about the speed of the chip card, which I got to watch the speed of my talking too. It's a slower transaction time when you're at the checkout. I think it's gotten better since we've done this, and somewhere in here I think I said early 2014 I was setting up the mom and pops for chip cards. It was slow then. It's gotten better, but I still think it's slower than your non-chip ones. Shift here a little bit. Another chip, NFC, near field communication. Did we miss any questions there?
No.
Chris, we could. Okay. Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, there's others. I have an iPhone. I do the Apple Pay. I use it a lot. Our local grocery store here in Rochester, Wegmans, is ready for it. I use it as a conversation piece, as a sales guy. Are you ready for this? That kind of stuff gets a conversation going. In the old days, a couple years ago, when we had these little chips, they're not the EMV chips. You can't see them. They're embedded in the little graphic shows like a hand waving something and just a little waves going off of that icon was on the cards. Those cards had no security that the Apple Pay and Samsung Pay. There's a two-step with the Apple Pay. If you're familiar with it, you pull up your card in your wallet, you hold the card over the device, pick the card, hold the phone, I'm sorry, pick the card you want, hold the phone over the device, and then the second step, after the card is, the chip/card number is received by the device, use your thumbprint or fingerprint as that second level of security. The old cards in your wallet did not have that biometric security on it. They could be hacked. Somebody could go by, 2020, and those guys did reports. They went by with a device by ladies' purses and guys' wallets and started scamming all these cards. So, yes, I think I covered that one. We're going to see, we do have a question here, NFC usage. Just curious how many folks out there are actively using the Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, the electronic wallets as they call them. We're going to see some merging of those two technologies, like more in Europe, where NFC and EMV come together. Not seeing it just yet. Backing up a little bit to the chip and PIN, how that's dictated is the card issuer. It's the Capital Ones, it's the Chase, it's the Citibank. Your local bank, if they give you a credit card, they have an issuer behind the scenes. You may not see the name except on the fine print on the back of the credit card. Those issuers are the ones that are dictating whether this is going to be chip and signature or chip and PIN. Identity theft hitting home. It's kind of a rerun of my earlier question, I think. You've been affected. So keep going. Chargebacks. So, okay, here we're talking businesses. On the one side, consumers on the other. Chargeback would be a dispute. Another question to answer there. And then we'll take a look here in a few minutes. Chargeback would be you go buy something at Land's End, wasn't what you wanted. In my opinion, taking it back to the store and talking to somebody instead of charging it back is a better way to do it. But people have their reason for chargebacks. In my experience in my years doing this, my merchant will call me first before they do anything else. They'll get paperwork and they have to go on the defensive when there's a chargeback. If one of their customers says, I dispute this charge, I think number one, you should talk to the merchant. The consumer should talk to the merchant and try to work it out. The consumer, or we'll put it back the other way, the merchant is usually guilty until proven innocent in these cases. The whole system is in favor of the consumer. You don't have to worry about this. If you want to return something or dispute something, we'll cover it for you. This kind of parallels the whole liability shift We talked about with the chip cards coming along, the liability shifted to the merchant if the merchant was not ready for the chip card stuff. That sort of goes hand in hand with the guys behind the scenes, the card issuers, the banks. All those are the ones that are picking up and covering all this fraud. So, give that a few minutes. Next slide. So I'm curious to see if you've been involved in a dispute as a consumer or you've had one as a merchant. Okay, Equifax breach. You know, it would almost be silly for me to ask the question. I don't think I did. Was anybody affected by this? I checked it for myself and my 3 adult children. First thing you want to do, okay, Equifax. Let me give a little more background. There's 4, and it's on the next slide. All this information's on the slide of what you need to do because I just did it for me, and it was a hassle. Equifax had a breach. So we have breaches going on at the target level. Somebody hacks in and gets a hold of our card number, and actually on those magnetic stripes, there's address, there's other information too. The credit lending world is relying on these credit reporting agencies. There's the big 3, and there's actually a 4th small one you'll see on one of the next slides. You want to go get a new card from JCPenney or Sears, or you want to get a new Capital One, they are going to check in with Equifax, get your credit rating. So all this information is being gathered on you and stored with Equifax. So it just went to a new level that not just your card number got hacked, your Social Security number got hacked. And historically, what was the Social Security number for? Social Security. The Social Security Administration only, but it's become something as a necessity. If you want to get a cell phone or you want to get anything, you've got to use your Social Security number. So when I verified, first step, if you haven't done this yet, I would suggest you do it. You can go out to this link and verify whether your information was hacked. I got a kind of a loose answer from Equifax on myself and my 3 adult kids saying, you're eligible for our free plan. That's basically said our stuff was hacked. So yes, it's gone from being a credit card thing to Social Security numbers. I have LifeLock for myself and my college-age daughter. We're both out there and just a little extra protection. That lets me know when somebody's using my information, or if I'm using my information to apply for credit. I get an alert pretty quick. I don't think that's enough anymore, and that's where we're going to a security freeze. The freeze that I put on the 4 agencies basically is stopping anybody from opening up a new card, or getting a loan, using my Social Security number. It stops it. It doesn't let me know necessarily. That's not the point. The point is to stop it. I paid $10 times 2 because the small guy, I'm going to bounce over to this. I can explain it better in the next slide. There's some other thoughts here. Pull your credit reports. You're going to get all this in the follow-up. I'll come back to the privacy statements. Here, okay, you'll get this in the follow-up. First, you go to that, did I get breached or not? I haven't seen any response, like I've said several times, that said no. I went out to all 4 of these guys. I had to pay at Experian $10, TransUnion $10. Equifax is being polite about it, and it's free. And Ovis is a guy I just recently heard about. Theirs free as well. So what happens if somebody goes to use my Social Security number, or if I do, if I want to go open up a new card or something, I'm going to have to pay $10 per occurrence to unfreeze it for that occurrence, and then it freezes back up. So I'm actually going to go back to this slide. Things we can do preventatively. Pull your credit report once a year. There's several agency options. I think they're all trying to get your money, but the free one is annualcreditreport.com. I don't think it gives you a score, but it gives you a full report, and you can analyze whether things are correct or not, and it shows you what the dispute process is. You get free ones from the big 3. The little guy, I'm not sure. Definitely want to do that, even aside from this whole breach thing. I've noticed, too, like my AT&T cell phone, and I think I'm going to see more of these, with new privacy statements coming out. Just in response to that, the lawyer language, these companies are sending us more stuff and responding, and maybe just saying, you got to read this and you agree and all that good stuff. You have options when these privacy things to say, do not share my information. I would say go through the hassle online or send that postcard in and shut it off so it's not, so there's less chance of your information getting out there. I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat here, but it's just kind of scary with all this stuff going on. The whole biometric thing, here's an analogy, the whole biometric thing on my phone with my thumbprint, and now the new iPhone 10 that's coming out with the facial recognition. I sort of parallel that with Equifax, where all that information is in my phone, the biometric stuff. If anybody ever hacked that information on my phone, they've got my facial recognition stuff, my thumbprint and all that. That's kind of the scary thing that just happened with Equifax. We trusted them with all our stuff, they got hacked. So
question around Equifax. So Pat writes, I read an article in the New York Times saying that you could put fake information in the trusted premier website, that link you shared previously, Pete,
yep,
and still get offered the monitoring. It did not really tell you if you were affected. And from my own personal standpoint, I went and checked, and I was told I could apply for monitoring on a specific date in the future. So I think we're kind of all getting either misinformation or disinformation. So how do you know what's the real information?
That's what I got. What was the name of this question?
Pat,
I got the same thing too, where at first they said, well, you're eligible. Right away when I heard about it, I went online, and they said, I think it was 4 or 5 days out, come talk to us again. I think they were just slammed with everybody. And then when I went back, it did say, oh, you're eligible for our free. To me, that was just saying, yes, you were hacked. So what did they say, 144, 145 million were hacked? Are those households, are those individuals? What is our population? Like double that in the U.S. now? 300 million-ish? So I'm almost thinking, okay, if it's half the population, maybe based on family, whatever. Safe side is go do it. In other words, they may just be dancing around the fact that everybody got breached. It's 145 million. It could be the whole population. It's just our infant kids, maybe they didn't get breached, whatever. Let's do it, because I think we're any more questions with that? No. Okay. That's a pretty hot topic. Hopefully my resolution, I did that too. It did take a little hassle. Some of the websites choked. Some of the phone numbers I had to call just hung up on me. I was persistent, maybe doing a time zone check, doing it if you're on the East Coast early before people get up, or later or after the West Coast goes to bed, whatever. You just kind of play the game. I got through it. I got things set up on all 4. So far, so good. Another thought, too, on all this breach stuff, breaches and hacking, is maybe the suggestion would be to have one credit card you use online for e-commerce. Something that's going to get more exposure and that might be more susceptible to being hacked, although now maybe everything's susceptible to being hacked. Using one credit card with a lower limit that you can monitor close, and reduce your exposure, in other words. So if something did get breached, you can shut it down quick, but there's less exposure. Monitor all your stuff. Keep track of some people don't even look at their statements, they just pay their bills. Watch everything real close. We have all these options for alerts and emails and texts and everything else. Definitely sign up for those kind of things with your cards, with your individual credit cards, and try to keep track of things more and more so you know when things are happening. I step it up a little bit on the card that my daughter has. It's in my name and hers, because there's 2 people out there. So if there's a charge that hits on that I'm not sure of, I'll text her and say, hey, was this you? She'll say, yep, that's me. So keep an eye. Use those tools. Future trends, I already mentioned that the EMV, the 2 different types of chips are being combined into the same credit card. We'll see that here in the next year or so. MasterCard has some new numbers. So for the business owner, in my portfolio of 130 plus merchants, I have a list of merchants and terminals and equipment and all that stuff that needs to be updated or replaced, because there's another thing too, security-wise. There's a security level that's being replaced. I'll spare you the technical details. And MasterCard is coming out with some new card numbers. Right now, your card starting with the number 4, 16 digits, that's Visa. Starting with 5, it's MasterCard. what's Discover? Discover is, I think 6. American Express is 2. Something new is coming with with MasterCard, where the terminals, a lot of the terminals out there will not recognize those new numbers, so there's new programming. So for the business owner, get on top of that, check with your credit card provider, make sure you're up to date on that. Visa is moving towards cashless, and I think we do have a later slide here with just some news from this morning. Shake Shack is moving towards cashless. I'm mentioning 3 businesses here that are in one of the shopping districts in downtown Lancaster, PA, where I'm from. Onions is a Korean restaurant, cash only. It's a handwritten sign on the door, cash only. My 78-year-old mother saw that sign, and she said, oh, they're going to get robbed. Well, kind of an interesting point. They might get robbed by their employees if there's cash laying around. Perk Up is a couple doors up. That's a little coffee shop. They are completely cashless. Based on some studies, the owner there, and it's actually the little cooperative thing where there's some students from some school programs that are coming in to be the employees. It's a cool little place. They're using the Square system, totally cashless. So that eliminates even the tip. There's no tip bucket. Commonwealth and Queen, I mentioned that because I was in there once. It's a little coffee lunch place. Somebody ripped off their tip bucket. So interesting, and these are all within stone's throw of each other. So one that's strictly cash, one that's strictly cashless. The other one in the middle is, I know the owner, he's probably going to go cashless after this tip bucket got ripped off. So just some interesting things there. Here in Rochester, I remember Marketplace Mall as being the bad guy that really affected my hometown 45, 50 minutes away. My hometown, Main Street, was really devastated by Marketplace Mall coming in. Now we see, I don't know if small town America is coming back, but you've got Marketplace Mall sort of going away because of Amazon and the online stuff. So I just commented on that as the trend.
So speaking of going cashless, Pete, Chris writes in, you mentioned that using plastic costs consumers, but does it cost businesses? Is going cashless going to be expensive for a small business?
When I talked about the effective rate on your credit card processing, it's going to be under 3%. People typically will make that up. The consumer, I'll be specific, the consumer will typically make that up by spending a little bit more. So the business will make out okay. So the question is, for the business?
Yeah,
going cashless for the business?
It's going to be expensive.
No. I think it's going to save you and eliminate the theft, whether it's internal or the tip bucket being ripped off, which is a kind of a rare thing. But it's, to answer your question quickly, it's going to be made up in the ticket lift, as we talked about in that earlier slide, with people spending a little bit more, getting the extra donut or bigger coffee or whatever, because if we just spend more, we don't have to use the green stuff.
Because we don't have to count it out of our wallet.
It doesn't hurt as bad.
Until later.
Yep, until we get that bill. Maybe that's why we don't open our credit card bills. We want to see what we just did. So Shake Shack, just an example. They're in New York City. They're going to get away from the cash stuff.
I was in New York last summer, and I went to pay for a breakfast at not a Shake Shack, somewhere else. I don't think Shake Shack serves breakfast. And I actually took money out of my wallet, and the cashier looked at me like I had 12 heads. She is, I don't think had ever taken a cash transaction. She did not know what to do.
Yep. It's easy. You got your cards, you got your Apple Pay, Samsung Pay. This just came to, I think the morning news I saw this. So Yahoo, another breach. So what information do they have? I don't think there's credit card info in there, unless you're paying for something. But your email address, they're saying names, email address, passwords, not financial info were breached. Ouch. So just not to be, like I say, wearing a tinfoil hat and be worried about all this stuff, and just not to be restricting how I live and breathe and function on Earth, but just be cautious. I'm the guy who gets the first call from my merchants saying, this just happened. One example recently, a conservative Mennonite, very, very hardworking, honest folks, great to work with. North of Lancaster, they have a truck service place, and the owner called me up. guys like this are just so, they're nice to work with. They're very pleasant, they're very hardworking. Called me up and said, I've had a bunch of tire orders. Somebody gave him a legitimate card number. He ran the transaction, and they sent somebody to pick up truck tires to the tune of $40,000. And it wasn't days later that that card, so somebody can take the first 6 digits of a card is a BIN, called a BIN number. Capital One has a BIN number, Chase. Those card issuers I talked about have their own specific BIN number. You can see where MasterCard's adding more because they ran out of numbers. So you can take a BIN number, you can take one of your cards out of your wallet, have a legit BIN number, use something on Excel or whatever, people do this, to create the rest of the card number, come up with an expiration date that works, and that's how these things of fraud go that I've seen online. Somebody calls in, they give a card number to the business runs it through the credit card machine, transaction is approved, they get their money, but within a couple of days it kicks back. That's where you and I as a consumer say, wait a minute, I didn't buy 30 truck tires, I don't own a tractor trailer. It kicks back, and then that money is pulled right back out of that business's account. So the product's gone, the money came in, they thought they had a great sale, the money disappears. Ouch. So bottom line on that is the owner that called me up, his gut instinct didn't settle right. Or he had a bad feeling about it, but he proceeded with it because he thought he had a good sale. If you're a business and you have something like that, you can call up the card issuer. Your credit card processor provider, guy like me, can connect you with a service number that's the actual card issuer, and they can verify that number, and they can get they won't give you the name of the consumer, of Joe Smith who owns the card. They will get in touch with Joe Smith and say, did you just order tractor trailer tires from southeastern Pennsylvania? And the guy's, Joe Smith's going to say, no, I don't own a tractor trailer, and I'm in Oregon. There's steps you can take. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. Any more questions on anything?
Actually, I see there is a PayPal question, but I wonder if you want to address this slide first and then.
Okay. Oh, PayPal. Just some things in my experience to watch for. Amazon has bought Whole Foods, and they have something in their stores. Maybe if somebody knows the name of it, it's like called Cupboard or some one-word phrase. Can't remember. Something like that. But you basically, it's an app. There's an app for that. You walk into the store knows you're there because of the NFC, the near field communication, or the Bluetooth, whatever. The store system knows you're there. You pick things off of the shelf and you walk out. And it grabs all that stuff, pays for it using everything's connected up with your card, your whatever. You walk out, you're done. So for me, and this, you keep saying 11 plus years, for all the years I've done this with the mom and pops, my eyes are just open and my ears are open. Something's going to come along just like Square came along, and we call them a disruptor. They shook the industry up a little bit. They provided a little niche product. I've got a friend who's going to do farmers markets. Well, she called me up and said, hey, what should I do? Square is a great solution for that. If you get above a certain dollar threshold, then you can talk about hooking up with me or your bank or whatever, do something different. Square was an interrupter a few years ago. I think there's some interrupters coming along, and these are the players. Amazon, Whole Foods, PayPal. I get an email, I referred to it earlier, I get an electronic email, electronic's redundant. I get an email from the industry just about every day of things that are going on like this. And so something's going to come along that's going to shake the industry, just like Uber did to the taxi world and some of these other guys. And these are the players. PayPal question?
The question really is really broad. It has to do with, and I'm actually going to do some interpreting here. I believe your PayPal account is somehow connected to a credit card, right? So the PayPal account's got to be funded. So where does security lie with respect to PayPal? Or are you at equal risk of having your identity stolen or your number stolen? Or
personally, just because of that gut instinct thing, I don't like the functionality of PayPal. I just stay away from it. I have an account tied to a bank account. But you know what? That's a separate. I forgot about that.
PayPal can be tied to your bank account too. Yeah, it's got to have a source of funding.
Right. And actually, now that I think about it, that's kind of a forgotten savings account I have with $10 in it.
Right.
So, like I mentioned, the credit card you set aside for those. I've set something aside just for PayPal because, talking bad about PayPal. don't do
but
that.
but more
Yeah.
more and more people want to use PayPal. I know even from, I'll just say from an RIT perspective, we've had donors who want to make their gifts using PayPal, and it's not something we currently offer for a whole host of reasons, but I often wonder, how do you safeguard yourself, because that's adding a whole other layer into the mix, right?
It is. I haven't used it or researched it enough to really give a good answer. My personal is I kind of stay away from it. But they are a big player. I think they started out with eBay.
Correct,
Made it easy for eBay, but they're expanding into other things, and they are big enough that it's caught my attention to just mention them. They are working on some things to change their reputation and grow and do.
Well, that question came from Mary Ann. So, Mary Ann, I think we got to just keep our eyes and ears open.
Just keep it up. I will, you know what, maybe if you shoot me an email, Mary Ann, I can.
Mary Ann, if you want more information, send us an email, and Pete was happy to do some research for you.
I'll check it out for you and me.
ritalum@rit.edu if you want to reach us or Pete directly.
Somebody asked about the online stuff. There's things in the works. I don't have any specifics, but I don't have a lot in my portfolio that do online stuff. So it's not an area of expertise. Really, my area of expertise I mentioned earlier was the point-of-sale systems.
Right.
But there's things happening all the time. And the last slide I have here is takeaways. So, question. Well, before we do that, popular restaurant announced a breach last week. I don't have a page.
Who was it?
Sonic.
Sonic. Oh, dear.
Yeah, who's ever been to Sonic? Maybe we should ask that. I've never been to Sonic.
We have one here now in Rochester. We might have more than one, I don't know.
And I don't think I have any more further questions. Okay. So takeaway. Yes, for the businesses, make sure you're up to speed with EMV. Understand how to analyze your monthly statements. Accept all card types. It's not going to hurt. It's going to build. Oh, you know what? There was another slide that I meant to get in here, and that showed. I actually pulled a statement from one of my customers. I masked out names and to protect the innocent and all that. It shows a monthly summary of how many cards, how many Visa cards and a dollar amount, how many Visa or MasterCard, and so on. The average transaction amount on this was a little restaurant. This was a little sit-down, pay-at-the-counter restaurant, sandwiches and ice cream. Their average transaction was about $23, $25 bucks. But when American Express came into play, their average transaction was $48, $50, $60 bucks. Much bigger. That's the businessman coming in paying for, on his expense card, that stuff. So you're going to win with American Express. It sounds like I'm plugging American Express. I sort of am. Because it's just the numbers. You're going to earn more off of it, and it's going to more than take care of the fees, and their fees have leveled off with everybody else anyway. Gift cards, yes. We have a tight window here now. I've reached out to all my customers and said, gift cards. Who needs to reorder? Who wants to do something? Because the closer you get to Thanksgiving, harder it is because everybody wants something. Any questions on that business stuff?
No, well, I have a question, but I think it's from a consumer perspective. On reading your statement, there are questions around not understanding clearly on that statement who the merchant is. The date of transaction doesn't necessarily seem to match the receipts. So how does one navigate that world of your statement?
I would call your credit card company up and check on that. Things should line up. Actually, that brings up a really good point for the business. The business opens themselves up to a chargeback dispute if the name is not right. You go to Joe's Pizza and you charge for 3 pizzas for your daughter's birthday party. You expect on your credit card statement it's going to say Joe's Pizza, not some other name with another address. Sometimes if Joe's Pizza is a franchise, if they don't have things lined up correctly, it could be Mama's Incorporated doing business as Joe's Pizza. If Joe's Pizza doesn't show up properly on your credit card slip off the machine that you get a copy of after you sign one for them and on your statement, that could be grounds for disputing it.
Well, that hopefully answers Art's question. I personally have seen that on my statement being charged by someone, and I call, and then they peel the layers back and they go, oh, no, it was this, but that didn't say it on the statement. Yeah.
I see some weird stuff with my daughter when she goes, and it says, say SQ star for square,
Right.
in the name of a business. You've got to make sure that when I sign a merchant up to set them up for their credit card processing, there's a legal name, corporate/legal name, and there's a DBA.
Yeah.
You got to have the DBA set right, so you're holding yourself out properly. That can
so
get
hopefully
confusing.
that answers your question, Art. Call the credit card company.
Yep. Oh, we're getting on top. Okay. Consumers. Down the list here. Do the freeze. Whether you're on the breach or not, I think we are all affected, sadly. Do the freezes. Set aside an hour or two to do it. Do it. It's a lot easier to do that preventative and lock it up, cost yourself $10 than, unfortunately, being part of getting your identity breached or stolen. Stolen is the word. These commerce risks, we talked about a little bit. Yeah, designate one card. Become familiar with all your credit card alert tools and reporting. Just another thing too. I don't follow this maybe as close as I could, but some of the information I see comes from Krebs on security, an independent guy who does some pretty interesting stuff. And that's all I have. Unless there's any questions. Did we miss any polling?
There were not any more questions. We literally have less than 2 minutes remaining, so I think for all intents and purposes, we are done. So if questions do come up, feel free to email them to ritalum@rit.edu. Pete's contact information has been posted as well. We want to thank you all for joining. We would like to thank Pete for being with us here in Rochester and for delivering this webinar today. There is another webinar coming up next week on Wednesday the 11th, where we will offer 5 secrets of public speaking. It's not what you say, it's how you say it, with another RIT alumnus, Rashad I'm going to say his name incorrectly, Barabmoff. Let's just go with that. So yeah, exactly. So thanks again to everyone. We're almost at the hour. If you feel so inclined, please take the very brief customer webinar satisfaction survey that follows this webinar. You can access it by closing the browser. Have a great rest of the day, and thank you again.
Thank you.